Good morning. How are you? You don't sound great. How are you? Yes, good. I'm so happy that you're all wearing masks because I can't see your sad faces over the Dodgers last night. It was your fault. She comes home, she hasn't watched any of the game. She walks in, she switches it on as the debacle happens. Tonight, take her out. Give her a big dinner. We'll help pay for it. Don't let her watch TV. It's good to be able to be together. If you were with us 2 weeks ago, I hope you will remember that I spoke about coping with crises. Coping with crises. I think apart from the Dodgers, there's lots of crises happening in the world today. And I want to talk just for a few minutes about running on empty, of being spiritually empty, being spiritually and physically and psychologically drained, running on empty. When I spoke 2 weeks ago about, you remember, it was about the giants and the grasshoppers. Some people said we felt like grasshoppers, living in a land of giants. Everybody else was so big and so capable and able to do things, but yet I felt like a grasshopper. We talked about that. But today I'm going to talk about the crisis of running on empty. And I want to start very quickly by just doing a recap and sharing with you 3 points that are made about crises. And I think some of you will remember, I hope some of you will remember. As we go through them, if you do, just put your hand up and say yes. Okay, number 1, crises are part of life. Crises are part of life. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. That was a statement of fact. How many of you would agree with that? In this world you have trouble. Yeah. How many of you have had trouble this last week? Yeah. I won't ask you about today. Many people move from one crisis to another. There's some bad theology going around today that says, you know, if you give your life to Jesus, if you commit your life to God, then you're not going to have trouble. That's nonsense. It's not true at all. You look at some of the most God-fearing, God-loving people, Job in the Old Testament, Paul in the New Testament, Jesus, you'll find that all of them, they lived amazing lives, but yet they experienced problems. So crises are part of life. How many of you would agree with that? Okay. Number 2, crises can make or break us. They can make you better or they can make you bitter. 2 people go through the same experience or a similar experience. One person gets encouraged by that, overcomes that particular challenge. Another person gets destroyed by it. So crises can make or break us. I said to you 2 weeks ago that in the Chinese language, there isn't a word for crisis. In the Chinese language, they use 2 symbols. And the 2 symbols are dangerous opportunity. I like that definition. You're allowed to nod. I like that definition, that a crisis is a dangerous opportunity. The third thing that I want to say about crises is that crises tend to ambush us. They come out of nowhere when we least expect them. They come out of the blue and they surprise us. They turn our lives upside down. You suddenly get a doctor's report. You suddenly find yourself facing a divorce. You suddenly find out that you've lost your job. So crises come and they ambush us. So today I'm talking about a crisis of emptiness. For many years I had a very bad habit. And that was, I used to dice with my fuel gauge. You know what I'm talking about? Eh? It was a number of years ago, and fuel was a little more expensive. Gas was a little more expensive than it is today. And I hated having to go and fill up at the gas station because I just saw all of that money going into the tank. And so what I'd do is I'd always think to myself, I can just do one more trip. I can go down to Ralph's and back. I can get to the office tomorrow morning before I have to fill up. And when I was here, I can get to the hospital to go and visit somebody before I have to fill up. And it was a terrible habit. At that point, Sharon would normally come and say, Dave, do you mind if I use your car? No, not at all, sweetheart. And then she'd come walking back inside and say, Dave, you're running on empty. She was talking about the car, obviously. But I think sometimes she was talking about me as well. And some of us here are running on empty. I got cured of that terrible habit of dicing the gas gauge. How many of you know the Camarillo grade? Oh my goodness, I'd been down in Camarillo. I think I'd been visiting with Kim Clement, and I was on my way home. And before I got onto the grade, I thought to myself, maybe I should stop and fill up the tank. And then I thought, nah, I've got plenty, man. Look, it's not even down past the E. That was always a good indication. You know what happened? I got halfway up the grade. Yeah. I was in the fast lane, the left lane. I couldn't get over to the right. And so I had to pull up right against, you know how they got that concrete barrier, that wall. I had to pull up hard against that. I couldn't even get out of the car. I called AAA and I said, please, will you help me? The guy said, where are you? I said, on the Camarillo grade. He said, what did you do that for? Took him about 25 minutes to get to me. And then he had to maneuver his truck in behind me. And somehow he managed to get out of the outside door and up onto the back of his truck. And then he put some of the gas. I think it was about $20 worth of gas. That cured me. I stopped running on empty, certainly with my car. I'm still trying to stop running on empty in my life. And so the question is, are you feeling empty today? Are you feeling that you're trying to run your life on empty? And there's no energy. There's no power. There's no good feeling about what's going on. Something I noticed when I would be driving the car and I would get down to empty, that there was a little light that used to flash, a little E, and it would flash. That would be to tell me, to warn me that I was about to be out of gas. Now, the same thing happens in our lives. I want to share with you just 3 warning lights. I've got 3 points today, and each one has got 3 points. You've already had the ones on crises. I want to give you just 3 warning lights in our lives that will help us to know when we're about to be running on empty. The first light, if you're filling in missing words, the first light is you become bored or busy. When you're running on empty, when you're emotionally drained, you tend to be bored or busy. If you're bored, life loses its wonder, it loses its excitement. It's a drag to get up in the morning, it's a drag to get out of bed, it's a drag to go to work, it's a drag to come home, and all you want to do is sleep all day. That's what you want to do. That's what boredom is like. Or, alternatively, you can become busy. Busyness becomes an escape from emptiness. Let me say that again. Busyness becomes an escape from emptiness. I'll be honest with you. Some of the busiest people that I know are the emptiest people. Mother Teresa. Anybody heard of Mother Teresa? Yeah, wonderful person. Mother Teresa once said something that was so true. She said, beware of the barrenness of busyness. I love that. It's so accurate. Beware of the barrenness of busyness. So warning light number 1, bored or busy. Warning light number 2, you discover that you're taking out things on other people, especially loved ones, especially those closest to you. You become hard to live with. Don't nudge the person sitting next to you. You tend to blame them for everything. I wish I had a better husband. I wish I had a better wife. I wish these kids belonged to somebody else. And I could have some. No, don't even want any. Where we take it out on other people. Everyone is always to blame for what's happening to us. When a car runs out of gas, it affects everybody. Have you noticed that? If a car runs out of gas and it's standing on the side of the road, it affects the traffic pattern. It affects everybody around it. When you're running on empty, spiritually or psychologically, everyone around you suffers. They bear the brunt of how you're feeling on the inside. It's difficult to live with a person who's running on empty. You ask Sharon if you don't believe me. Right, babes? Oh, she's so clever. She sat dead still. Don't worry, babes. The Dodgers are going to win today. All right, can you take a third warning light? Third warning light is you're out of touch with God. You're out of touch with God. You go through the motions. You can talk about God, but there's no sense of feeling. There's no sense of power. You can attend church, but you don't feel connected with God in any way at all. There's no sense of His presence. He's far away. You're out of touch. Anybody, don't put your hands up. Anybody running on empty? I think those are 3 good warning lights. If you'll spend a few moments just thinking about that. I've got about 5 minutes left. What I want to do is I want to respond with 3 suggestions on how to make sure that you keep the tank full, that you're not running on empty. Are you good for that? Okay, number 1, the first suggestion I want to give you is don't fill your emptiness with the wrong thing. Don't fill your emptiness with the wrong thing. It'll destroy you. Tisha, I wanted to ask you this question, but before I do, you need to say yes, Dad. Thank you. That's called trust. A little while ago, Cody became the proud owner of a diesel truck. Oh man, this thing is so powerful. He gets up in the morning and you hear this, it sounds like a tank coming down the road. Brrr. And he loves that thing. Soon after they bought it, they pulled into the gas station and Cody said, listen, I'm just going to go in and buy the kids something. It was sodas or candy or something. And so Tisha thought that she could be helpful. And so she took the handle and she put it into the gas pipe. It wasn't the diesel tank. It was ordinary gas. Hey, babes. Yeah. Has he forgiven you yet? Did he forgive you that same day? Yes, okay. She got about halfway filling the tank, a diesel tank with regular gas. When Cody comes out and he looked and he, stop! Fortunately, the truck wasn't running. Fortunately, they were able to have it towed to a service station. They had the tank, you had to have the tank drained. What are you shaking your head for? The service station, he had it towed home and he siphoned all of this wonderful mixture out of the truck, and then he had to flush the tank. And anyway, it was a lot. You'll never do that again, will you, babes? No. Now when he gets out, she says, fill up your own tank, buddy. I don't blame you. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes we feel empty on the inside. Be careful what we try to fill that emptiness with. I think what's happening at the moment is a lot of people are looking to alcohol in order to fill an emptiness. I believe that alcohol consumption has gone up many, many %. Yeah, it's way up. Yeah. Yeah. Alcohol's not going to help. I'm not saying don't drink. I'm saying be careful how much you drink. Another thing I think people turn to, I've heard some people say, well, you know what? There's nothing else to do now. Life is so boring. I think I can have an affair. So we turn to alcohol. Maybe we turn to an affair. That might... No, Steve. Shh. I'm not letting you say that one publicly. Or maybe you think a shopping spree will help me. Come on, that'll add some excitement to my life. That'll help me feel less empty. I loved what Rick Warren said many years ago. He says, you start buying things you don't need with money you don't have in order to impress people you don't like. Yeah. So the first suggestion I want to make is don't fill your emptiness with the wrong thing. Find out what you need to fill your emptiness with. Second point, let me tell you a story. This is one of my favorite stories. There was a couple who invited a few of their friends around for dinner one night. And so it was the couple and 2 other couples. And they had a wonderful time. They chatted, they laughed. They had a wonderful dinner as well. The hostess had prepared mushrooms. Oh man, and they were delicious. When they finished eating the mushrooms, the hostess cleared the plates away. She took them into the kitchen. And while she was there, she took a few of the leftover mushrooms and she put them into the cat's bowl. She walked out. About 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, she came back into the kitchen for something. And there's the cat lying on the ground, writhing in pain. And she thinks, oh my goodness, it must be the mushrooms. She rushes out. She says to her husband and to the other 2 couples, she says, quickly, we got to go to hospital. We got to get rid of these mushrooms. They go, they have stomach pumps and all kinds of horrible things. 2 hours later, they return to the house. And as they open the front door, they are met by the cat and her 7 kittens. Make the correct diagnosis. If you make the wrong diagnosis of your emptiness, you could end up in a lot of trouble. So that's what we need to do. Make the right diagnosis. Wonderful man. He lived centuries ago by the name of Saint Augustine. Saint Augustine said some very wise words. He said, "In each of us is a God-shaped vacuum that only God can fill." In each of us is a God-shaped vacuum that only God can fill. And Saint Augustine was dead right. Nothing else will fill up that God-shaped vacuum. That's probably the most important thing I'm going to say today, or maybe this week. Can you take one more? All right, third suggestion. Keep your tank full. Keep your tank full. Don't run on empty. Now, how do we do that? I want to suggest 3 ways. Number 1, spend time alone with God every day. My good friend Trevor Hudson said, "Dave, always tell people 2 or 3 minutes is good to start with." You don't want to say, "Well, I'm going to spend an hour with God." Because after 5 minutes, you won't know what to do. Grow into it. So you start by spending time with God alone, just for a few minutes. The second thing that will help you to keep your tank full is spend time with other Christians whenever you can. I love Thursday mornings, 7 o'clock. For about 45 minutes, there's 6, 8 of us who get together and we pray for people in the congregation. On the tables, you'll find a little card. If you've got a prayer request, just fill that in, put it in the box, which is at the back there, and Vicky will make sure that we get those on Thursday morning. I love that group. We don't just pray the whole time. We get together and we say, "Linda, how are you?"
"I'm well. How are you, Dave?"
"I'm great, thank you." "I'm horrible." Oh, but we spend about 15 minutes just checking in with each other, and then we spend the rest of that time just praying together. Once a week, I meet a friend of mine at Starbucks. We have a good time. We just talk. We talk about the church. We talk about God. We talk about our families. We talk about all sorts of things. But we spend time with other Christian people. The third way is spend time in the Bible. Spend time in the Bible. Read a few verses, read a few chapters. A little while ago, 3 amazing people, Cody, Diesel, Cody, Tertia, and Tayden, put together a mentorship program. This is one of the most encouraging and inspiring things that I've done in a long, long time. One of the things that they did was they kept on referring to Scripture and how Scripture can help us in our everyday lives. One of the days, Tayden spoke to us and gave us a meditation from Psalm 23. I've asked Tayden to come forward and to share with us a brief meditation as we conclude from Psalm 23. Tayden.